All right, hi everybody. I'm Ian Mason, Director of Operations at FUTO. I'm here with Nick Khami and Denzell Ford from Trieve, who were ArgueFlow when they were 2023 FUTO Fellows here in Austin, Texas. They've since moved up to the big leagues. They're out in San Francisco, just closed a seed round after graduating from Y Combinator in one of the hottest fields in startups right now, AI. Give us a little update. How are things going out there?
Things are going really good. Yeah, we're landing like bigger customers as of recently and growing revenue at a pretty steady rate, which is really exciting. And the seed round also went fairly good. We're pretty happy with who we got to partner with, and we'll be announcing it soon.
The startup world and AI in particular, there's a lot of talk about it's sort of the ultimate the customer as the business model problem there. Have you guys been able to avoid that? Kind of stay on the customer side, stay on the user's side, and has that caused any problems as you've ramped up?
I think we've most definitely been able to do it. There's two things that we do that I think make it special. The first is that we let people license the software and deploy it on their own servers without reporting any data at all back to us, analytics or usage. And second, we use open source models that are self-contained on GPU servers, which we pay for through a cloud provider or have on premises. So that data doesn't leak to a AI provider. Obviously, some customers have less sensitive data, which they don't mind getting out. And for that, it's kind of okay to use those vendors. But ultimately, I think the only way to avoid it is to run your own models on your own GPU servers in your own private cloud.
Yeah, we provide like really easy paths and like kind of like guiding people to like use these things. It actually makes everything go faster too. It just actually like it's better infrastructure in general, just hosting it on your own prem versus using like a cloud provider or like a managed service for these type of things.
We also like lower the latency for that option to try to make it even more attractive because the cloud providers don't do much to reduce latency. So that kind of makes it easier to push people in the right direction.
So I think on that note, a coworker insisted I ask, how many GPUs do you have?
Currently, we have I think we're currently using 2 to 3 GPU servers. Um, GPU like nodes. Each node has about 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I think that currently they're using T4s, so it's not that many. It's a decent amount so that we can just have like a good enough scale to like kind of like run through multiple like embedding servers at the same time.
It's probably like 9 T4s across everything.
Right on. So to shift gears a little bit, obviously doing things on premise, allowing people to self-host their model, your product is very much in keeping with the FUTO ethos. Another thing that you have done, you've used the business source license, which I think some people might call a source available license. It's something that I think fits closely to what we at FUTO are going to start calling source first for our own things. A sort of what we were calling open source here until very recently, and we've put out a couple of statements on this, and we've had kind of some pull from both sides, people saying it's not enough or it's too much. As somebody who is doing a more traditional startup and keeping to that, that was one of our stipulations here as FUTO fellows, that the source code be available to customers. You've kept with it, but you've insisted on some variation of what we're doing for some of our own products, which is limiting commercial uses of it. Has that caused any problems in terms of people either on the one side finding it too restrictive, that it's not real open source and that therefore they're not wanting to use it, or on the other side, the fact that it's not true proprietary software and they don't want to use it from that end?
I think definitely not on the true proprietary software side. People, there is definitely a concern when you are bringing on a vendor of software that for whatever reason they will stop supporting it or not support it continuously because they're not getting compensated to. And the source available license addresses that concern to enough of an extent that it goes away in most cases that we've seen. But when we like very early when we were fellows, we had a more open license, and pretty much immediately we had concern with it from customers where they actually didn't like that it was fully open. It made them uncomfortable because they didn't get the business model.
one of the really big issues of just like fully open source license, like we see it all the time. Like one of my favorite projects, it's called null ls. It just like kind of stopped being supported because like it was just too much work for them to maintain. They weren't getting paid for it. Commentator, like they were just like working like way too much. It's actually very concerning whenever I think it's too open source and there isn't a big community behind it. So like you have to kind of have like some sort of like I'm making money off of this. I'm living off of this. I won't like stop just like and leave you just because I can't. I have too much time. I don't have enough time.
On the investment side of things, kind of like less so customer, definitely the case that some of the venture investors were concerned with it not being open enough. I think that in the venture ecosystem, the big reason to be open source is to kind of like cannibalize your community or lever your community to get like bottoms up traction for a product. And then the mindset is that eventually you change the license and screw them over, which is altogether weird. It's like it's weird that they would be okay with you pitching that or even intend to do that. But large public companies like Elastic and HashiCorp have obviously done it relatively recently. When we were pitching them, I think that it's nuanced, but we were able to successfully get some folks at least to understand the logic for not being fully open. Like we got them to understand that like the recent burns with Redis and HashiCorp, and kind of like other and Elastic and other projects have made people who are thinking about joining open source communities a lot more wary. And even from the standpoint of like getting bottoms up people to run the software or contribute to the software, if that is your goal, even those folks are now starting to become more comfortable with the idea that the maintainers are at least thinking about longevity. At least then, like things feel more honest and transparent. Where he's contributing to some like venture-backed MIT software, I think is growing to be more taboo. Or like contributors are feeling a sense of like, I don't know what the point of this is, or I have some fear about it that makes it not worthwhile. And even like for us, some of the software that we use that's open, like our vector database of choice Quadrant, it is nerve-wracking that it's fully open. I would rather that they may add a non-commercial license and make the license affordable for people like us. That would be so much more fair and make using the software feel so much better. Whereas like right now, we're kind of pulling it off the shelf, putting it in our stack, and then making money on it. And Quadrant gets nothing back from us, which yeah, we've expressed to them a few times, like it feels unfair.
Yeah, like one of the things I always kind of say to is like if it's MIT license, the MIT license is like kind of there in case I get hit by a bus and die. So like if that assumption's kind of there, like the company like Quadrant could die, and like if they die, like we can just take them up. But like the assumption that they could die is just kind of scary to think about like all the time.
And there's, FSL and other licenses that address this already. So it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like there's much of a point to doing it anymore. It kind of just feels like it feels uncertain and confusing, I think, at this point.
Yeah. And I don't think that from our end we're thinking we're reinventing the wheel either. I mean, this is obviously issues that people have faced for a long time, and I very much see what you're saying. These are kind of the same issues we've run into, that having that more closed license or just outlook on how you're going to support it is almost more transparent. There's not a something hidden behind the door, or at least that's how we'd like to do it, and we're aiming towards maximum transparency. I'd encourage everybody to see what we put up in our statement on open source, and now at sourcefirst.com, we have a lot kind of more principles of that laid out. And while you're at it, definitely check out Trieve, Trieve.ai. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having us on, and +1 for Source First.
Right on. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.